I'm going to come back to this at the end, come back to this signal phrases thing again, that we practice these in the annotated bibliography. With your summaries, we said like signal phrases are important to improve clarification and objectivity, to show that the points come from your source and not from you. Helps create that third person and objective perspective. So we did talk about that, but I want to talk about how you're going to use these in your in your digital essay also. So just a quick review. Signal phrases, again, are author signals, and in-text citations together help create those fences. It shows where it starts and where it stops. Super important if you have like multiple sentences that are paraphrased, because we don't know where it stops. It's not enough if you're paraphrasing material just to dump in-text citations at the end of huge chunks of material or huge chunks of paragraphs, because what that leads me to believe and other readers is that everything from one in-text citation to the next is paraphrased, which sends a signal that you didn't write any of the paper. There's no original material here. So it's really important to know where it starts and where it stops to see what round it is from you. And again, it helps make those distinctions between the writer and the source that we talked about with a digital essay, to know like, this was not my point, this is from the author or an outside perspective. It clearly shows like where you are using sources, and that's part of being a responsible writer and researcher in the academic community, is to be very clear about where your information is coming from, and when you are using sources to help build that data and that information. Another point should be used to introduce direct quotes and paraphrase material. Again, sometimes we are practiced at using them for one or the other. A lot of people use a signal phrase at the beginning of a quote to set it up. Not always for paraphrase material, so just kind of keep in mind how important it is to to introduce those paraphrases and quotes both. And again, it attributes those opinions to the appropriate party. We used it in the digital essay, again, to create objectivity and writerly distance. And I want to come to this point. These really help in arguments because it helps reduce the chance that the reader is going to misconstrue your analysis of sources with bias. So making sure that you're attributing opinions, that are from the source to the source. And it kind of helps create that clarity. If they can't see the source clearly, it's hard to tell if you're using credible information or not. So if you're talking about things that are claims that you pulled from a source, but we can't see that source, then it looks like you're throwing in biased information from your own head and that you're not connecting your thoughts to data. And that's really how you create a fair-minded academic argument, is not to throw out claims or opinions or interpretation or anything that could be, that could be seen as subjective, without connecting it to your research, without connecting it back to data and to something that you found when you were researching. And if you were looking at something less, more informal, like a blog, this is how it would look. Again, I think I showed this example before. When I first read this article by so-and-so, a reporter from on Student Debt at CNN, this article, she emphasized this throughout her article. She did this article stated. So just making it really clear that these things are coming from the source. If you're looking at like an academic text, like a scholarly text, they do this too. They begin their points, equally. We're going to say Miss. I don't want to mispronounce that. Miss Rossler argues that, and then includes a quote. In addition, they move on from there. I know where it starts. I know where it stops. As Rayab argues, so they're synthesizing, pulling from multiple sources. Privacy represents sorry, I've got something on my screen over this. A constitutive public good, societal good, understood. And I don't want to, not necessarily the content of this is important, but that you can see how it looks. Equally, this person argues, as this person argues. So we have, a place where we know where something starts, and this is a paraphrase. We know where it stops. We know this part, this next thing the assumption is this paraphrase here also comes from this source. It lets them know that on page 22 and page 23, stuff came from here. We can see that happening. This is a sample that I think we've looked at before. Ooh, this is off a little bit. Let me just picture it out. So the first sample, this is without a signal phrase, and I want to explain the difference between a general and a specific signal phrase. The merits of cancer screening must be reappraised. If I just said that, I don't know. I'm assuming the author, like the actual, like if this were your paper that you made this claim. If you have a general signal phrase, like many doctors conclude that. So if you're talking about like trying to debunk stereotypes, you might say many people fear that, or because of stereotypes in film, many people assume this. You're still creating clarity around whose opinion this is. A specific signal phrase kind of looks like this. Actually, let me move this down a little bit because I don't think it's getting my whole screen in here very well. Without a signal phrase, it might be, however, the merits of cancer screening are currently debated by new data. Bam, quote starts. I don't know where this came from. I don't know who's saying it. I don't even know why there's a quote here. This is a dangling quote, kind of a hit and run quote. It just sort of appears and then you move on. If it's revised with a specific signal phrase, so it means it's like from a source or from a certain person. However, the merits of cancer screening are currently debated by new data. According to Dr. Dan Boyd, the director of cancer research at the Charlotte Clinic, who just produced one of the new studies on cancer screening, suddenly it makes sense. Like, I know where this is from, who said it, I know why you're talking, speaking from this person or allowing them to speak in your paper, and it just makes things a lot clearer. Final takeaway points before we do the reflection. I'm going to move my face down here a little bit. There we go. When you're clarifying and when you're integrating sources and you're trying to make it clear, it's about your credibility as the writer, as the researcher. And I want to make this clear. If you look at scholarly articles, you might be looking at them and thinking, they don't do much introducing sources. And you're right, they don't. They don't do very much of providing lots of context for sources and things like that. Here's why. Different writing situations. They are experts writing for experts. There's an assumed credibility on the writer's part, especially the peer review process helps with this. There's an assumed knowledge already and expertise on the audience's part. They're part of the same academic community. They have the same expertise. The audience has probably already read all of these sources, and there's assumed credibility on the part of the sources because they've been through the peer review process, so there's not that much of a need for that. Now, all writing situations work that way. And I make that point because I want to clarify that you are not necessarily in that position. You're not writing a scholarly article for other articles, and you might not necessarily be an expert. One of the ways that we build, like if you're a novice in this area, one of the ways that we build our own credibility is by finding experts to back us up. Therefore, you do have something to prove to your audience because of the style that you're writing in, the genre you're writing in, the placement of it. It's a digital text, not a scholarly article. So you do have something to prove, and there might be an assumed lack of knowledge on the reader's perspective or on the reader's side where you do need to build up and explain some of this stuff for clarity's sake. So just kind of keep that in mind, that difference in those two writing situations. Your clear and effective use of sources, the degree to which you're fair with other perspectives, your ability to have an unbiased tone and wording when you're talking about other perspectives and sources are part of building your credibility.